Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Spiritual Junk Food Episode 1. Finally doing it after about 4 months. Yep, sorry about that. With better lighting now. That's good. In this episode, I will be talking about growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. I was a Jehovah's Witness until I was 19, so about the first 20 years of my life was taken up. Um, Going to meetings, giving talks, going to conventions, out the preaching work. So yeah. Growing up as a Jehovah's Witness is not the easiest thing for a child. They are not very good to children. They expect a lot of them, um, and it's just not a fun thing. I never enjoyed being a Jehovah's Witness, whether as a child or the short time I spent as an adult as a Jehovah's Witness. I never enjoyed or looked forward to giving talks or going out in the ministry or going to conventions. I just dreaded it all. But I did it because that's what was expected of me and because I didn't know any better. I know better now. So I was born to a Jehovah's Witness mother. My father never was and never has been a Jehovah's Witness, which was very, very fortunate for me when I disassociated myself, because he's the only family member that really still talks to me. So that's lucky. I always respect him for that, because I'm sure my mother probably tried to get him there. She actually married him while she was disfellowshipped, and then sometime before I was born, she got reinstated. And so I'm sure she tried, but he just never was a spiritual or religious person. So, yeah, he just kind of probably rejected any advances that she made about that. I didn't really have a bad childhood, all considering. I was never abused or anything like that physically. Mentally, you might be able to argue for that, as most of you grew up in it, could tell. Um, Going to school is always a hard thing for Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, when I was in the area that we lived in, the homeschooling was not that big as it is now. So I went to public school. And as all of you probably know, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you're not allowed to do holidays, celebrate holidays, salute the Pledge of Allegiance, stand for the national anthem, things like that. So, um, when you spend the first 5 years of your life kind of just going to meetings, spending time with your parents, people in the congregation, yeah, it's pretty simple, especially when you don't really know what's going on because your mind's so young and whatnot. But then you get thrown into a public school setting with all these kids. There was not another Jehovah's Witness child in my elementary school that I knew of. There was one, I think, in middle school and high school. I eventually got there, but elementary school I was the only one. So I was thrown in with all these worldly people who had completely different views than I did. But I never got much flack. Usually the teachers are always, I guess, notified beforehand from my mom, I guess, that I didn't do holidays or do the flag, whatnot. So I never really had that much trouble in school. Some kids, when they found out I was a witness, told me that I was going to hell a couple of times, but it really didn't bother me. Probably should have, but it didn't. I don't know, I just didn't care. I became an unbaptized publisher when I was about 7, 8, something like that. And I became one because there was this other kid in my hall who was about a year older than me that had recently become an unbaptized publisher and started giving talks. And I saw the praise and recognition that he was getting from the adults, and I wanted that. That pretty much sums up my whole time as a Jehovah's Witness and all the responsibilities and privileges that I reached out for. I didn't do them because I wanted to do them. I did them because I wanted the praise and recognition that came with them, and because I just thought that's what you were supposed to do anyway. Um, so one day, or one evening after a meeting, I went up to the presiding overseer at the time and just said, I want to give talks. And so he said, well, we'll have to talk to your mother about that. Talk to her about that. Got to be a baptized publisher. Started giving the number 2 talks, which at the time on the old Theocratic Ministry School, this would have been about the late 90s. And the number 2 talk was the Bible reading, but at the time you still had to make up your own introduction and conclusion, which were written by my mother. And she would write it out, give it to me, and I would just have to practice reading that, practice the Bible reading and all the weird, names and words that are in it that are always challenging for a child. And then I'd get up there. They had to have the stool for me because I was so short. So they'd bring the stool out. I'd get my fat little ass up there, do my little thing. And then I'd get praised and bragged on for it. I loved it. So that was, yeah. So that was okay. Because my father would come and see. He would stay for just the time that I gave my little talk. And so that was kind of cool to have him included in that at the time because, I thought of him as in the wrong. But now I'm glad that he, never got indoctrinated or anything like that. But, I got all this recognition and stuff, but at the same time, around the same time, my sister got disfellowshipped. And it was really strange, because at the time I did not know what being disfellowshipped meant. I just knew that when she would go to meetings, nobody would talk to her. Sometimes we'd have to stay afterwards because she would have to go in the back room with the elders and have little discussions. She would cry a lot during the meetings, have to go to the bathroom, cry it out, come back, all mascara, shit everywhere. And I just didn't really know what was going on. And at the same time, I had become an unbaptized publisher and was getting all this praise and privileges, and well, not a lot of privileges, just giving the talk and being able to count time. And so it was kind of weird. But after a couple of months, she got reinstated. She was a good girl. And everything was hunky-dory for a little bit. I grew a little bit, didn't have to have the stool anymore, kept on giving talks. And then when I was about 11 years old, it got discovered that my mother had been having an affair with a brother in the hall that had recently moved there about a year or so before. And that led to my mom divorcing my father, my mom moving out, me just living with my father. My sister had already graduated high school at this time and moved out on her own. And my mother got disfellowshipped. The dude that she had fucked he only got reproved. I think it might have had something to do with because he was kind of chummy with the elders. That's just speculation. I don't know. But yeah, so that was hard because at the time I understood what disfellowship meant, and I kind of knew what to expect. It was kind of difficult because at that time I started, having friends that I talked to and stuff, and what would happen was, sorry if I'm rambling, I'm trying to think back, kind of open up my mind palace, think back to all this stuff. I would spend the week at my dad's and then the weekends at my mother's, and my mother would pick me up for any weekday meetings. So we would get there like right as the meeting started, and then we would have to leave right as it ended because she didn't want to be around people. Because, why would she? No one would talk to her. Why would she stay? So I really didn't get to talk to people and interact with people at the hall like I used to. So that was kind of a bit weird. But it wasn't very long. It was less than a year. She got reinstated again. And then married the dude that she had had the affair with